true.
I have a bunch of questions I want to ask, and then they're all, you're leading me up, setting me up for my next question.
Okay.
I want to ask if you guys have any questions that you want to jump in with.
What was it like working with the Muppets?
The Muppets are real jerks. They're real jerks. No, it was incredibly fun. The people who actually do the Muppets, I'm now good friends with the guy who played Sam Eagle in the movie. He also plays Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear, and what they do makes what I do look way too easy, which what I do is probably too easy, but they do 3 or 4 things at once. I have such admiration for the men and women behind the Muppets are not only having to act and be funny, which is plenty difficult, at least for me, but at the same time they're inhabiting a character, and that's difficult in and of itself, but then they're also doing these incredible technical things where they are often on a little square about this big where they're rolling because they have to, stay low while you're moving. They have a hand that's working the mouth. They have, in the case of Sam Eagle, Eric Jacobson, who works Sam Eagle, was also working his eyes at the same time, and with a hand, a mechanical hand.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine putting all of that together, which I can't imagine, I don't know how they did it. They do it. It's remarkable. They're kind of like, to me, they're like athletes because they have to ice their shoulders. They have to. They have.
It's a lot of physical work.
It's a ton of physical work. So they do what I do, and then they do 6 other things.
Yeah.
So,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Is there like a ritual you have before you go into a shoot? Or
Before I perform.
Before you perform or anything?
I always throw up. I haven't done theater in a while, but I had a very devoted ritual before I did plays, which was, does anybody here know what a wiffle ball is? Yeah. So I would throw a wiffle ball against a wall for an hour before I did a play. For whatever, and this is something, if you're an actor or whatever, I really recommend, do whatever it is that helps you. You get a lot of training. We all get so much training, and it's all so great. Our training is so helpful, and you have great professors, and absolutely listen to your professors when you're in school, because there's so much to soak up there. But when you get out into the real world, you kind of have to be your own guru, so to speak. It took me a while to figure that out, about just finding your own thing that prepares you. For the longest time, I did all the exercises that I was supposed to do to prepare for an emotional scene, or to prepare for, if it was a play, to prepare for the length of a play. And one time I was throwing a wiffle ball against the wall, and somehow it got me focused, and then I just threw all the other stuff out the window. But I'm not saying everybody should throw a wiffle ball. Yes, I am. Throw a wiffle ball. With TV stuff or film stuff, this isn't really a ritual. It's more of just a general thing of I always feel better if I'm more prepared. So it's so unpredictable if you're shooting a film or a television show, because everything's out of order, and the order changes often. You can come to work and you think you have a scene where you're supposed to be confronting, your dad about your childhood, and you've been up all night working on it and preparing, and then they're like, oh yeah, we scrapped that. This is where you fall into the whipped cream, or vice versa, So I don't really, I think I just try to be as prepared as possible for everything, and then you start to get signs as you get closer that it's really happening. Like when you get called in for rehearsal on a set, it means it's happening basically, and then you can kind of start to dial in. But by necessity, you kind of have to not get too locked in that world. With a play, it's totally different. I mean, as you all know, people who've done plays in here, it's a completely different world, because it is the exact same thing every time, And that's its, I think, in my opinion, that's its strength and its weakness. I think that the strength of it is you know exactly, you get into the rhythm of that story because you're in full control of the storytelling in theater, right? In theater, you are the beginning, middle, and end. There's no editing. You're telling the entire story. And after maybe a week or two of doing previews or rehearsals, and I'm sure there are other people who've got plenty of experience with this. Are you an actor too? Yeah, okay. So you know that feeling about like, okay, this is, you kind of internalize it where you're sort of like, oh, I think I know a little bit of how this story goes now. You know, now I kind of have a sense for how this story goes. So I probably shouldn't get too like heavy before this play because it starts out with us doing all of this stuff. You change, it adjusts, but you can do it every night. It's the same every night, which is great.
Time.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we love you and your character as Phil, but I think maybe this question is more relevant to people who are just starting their acting career.
Mm-hmm.
And you seem to know exactly what you want right now, and you're comfortable where you are. But
Yeah.
like, the risk of typecasting in this, in where you are right now.
Yeah.
For someone who's younger and
Yeah.
the younger actors that are just starting their career, like,
Yeah.
where do you know the balance? Like, where do you know? How do you know? Or at what point did you realize?
The
This is-
typecasting.
You're comfortable doing it, and you're at the risk of being typecasted doing that, and we love it. Like, it's not like.
I think that's a great question. She's asking about typecasting, and basically, at what point do you decide that it's worth being typecast? Am I saying that correctly? That it's worth being typecast to have the stability. I am typecast now, and it has made for some challenges. I personally wouldn't have it any other way because it's given me opportunities in a lot of different areas that I wouldn't have had. When in my previous career, my wife and I were very happy, you know, and I think it probably we would have been able to sort of continue and everything would have been fine, but what the show has given me is other opportunities that I'm learning. Like many of you who've discovered, you know, other things at a much younger age. I've discovered that I want to learn how to be a writer, but I discovered it at 45. And the show has given me that opportunity. I wouldn't have the opportunity to. I'm lucky enough to have a production deal with Fox about writing a show, and I'm not dumb enough to think that I would have that deal if the show wouldn't happen, because I'll be honest, I'm not a good writer yet. So they are taking a flyer on me, and it's because of the show, and I just have to kind of like, you know, touch wood and count my blessings on that, and for me it's been worth it. But if you're a young actor and you're concerned about that, you have to weigh, you know, you're weighing a lot of things. It also has to do with your confidence level. If you're somebody who is just supremely confident, which I never was a supremely confident actor, maybe you don't want to take a job like that, you know, because you just feel like you know that you're going to have the opportunities that you want and you're going to have the creative success that you want, and that's not an issue. For me, I was very happy to have some security. I've, you know, just felt very lucky to have a steady job. But that's I think it's a good question because it's something that everybody has to decide for themselves. I think the efforts that it's taking right now for me to get some parts that I would like, that I probably may have had a better shot at getting before, I would take that. But not everybody would, so it's kind of an individual thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we will love to continue asking a lot of questions, but we're going to have to give it to the audience for the Q&As because we're running out of time.
Okay, yeah.
So questions, the glasses.
So you mentioned you did some stage work and
Yeah.
theatre and things like that. I'm just wondering, do you miss it at all? Do you want to go back? Would you ever experiment with a different medium like musicals?
That's funny. Are you a musical director? No.
What?
I thought he was going to hand me a script. Like a musical about Die Hard? I would. I definitely would. I think there's a recurring theme in my life anyway, and I don't know if this is true, if other people feel this is true, but at a certain point, I'm really loving learning something new. And it's been happening more and more for me anyway. We're talking about voiceovers. I didn't get to do that until I was in my 40s. It's been really fun. I'm learning how to write, and that's been just incredibly fun. And to be honest, I think my interest in performance in general is actually waning a little bit. It's not necessarily that I wouldn't want to do stage work. I think that it's just been so fun being in that place where I think a lot of you are at right now, where it's so new and it's so exciting and it's so humbling. I'm constantly being knocked down again, and not that still happens as an actor, but the show has just been such a lovely place to be for so long, and it's a cool place to be in a place where I'm scared again, if that makes sense. I miss that feeling a little bit of being, I don't know, I'm sure there are people out here who can relate to this, but I grew to depend on my nerves and depend on, in a weird way, on failure because of constant auditioning. I learned so much from that, and I really felt alive. And you do feel alive. I think it's, having to strike out. That's an American baseball term. Striking out is something that I've just felt was a great thing for me looking back on it, because you constantly having to reappraise why you're doing it, rethink how you're doing it, can I do it better? And the things that I'm doing now with writing in particular and trying to write TV shows, it's mostly failure. I'm mostly getting told no, and it's been awesome. No, it's been good. I think I want to kind of stay in that route. Yeah.
We have time for one more question, fortunately.
Okay.
Here.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I was wondering if you feel or think that the role of Phil Dunphy and the image it has created for you as an actor will ever limit your success or limit your role as an actor in future jobs, maybe?
I don't. I think it's definitely harder to get certain parts than I was getting before, but I think it's provided way more opportunities and I would have never gotten to do family stuff, which that's been really fun to do that kind of thing, and to do animated stuff and to do things like the Muppets and to have stuff that my kids, I don't think they fully understand what it is, but that they are, I sit and watch it with them. That would have never happened. Yeah. One more. We can do one more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Hi, my
Hi.
question is, what was your experience playing Dr. Oliver in Out of Practice?
My gosh, I have so many people who are going to be so happy that you asked that. The writers of that show, we were very proud of that show.
It was actually one of my favorite shows, and
Yeah.
I want to know, what was your reaction when you knew it was gonna stop?
But that was the first comedy I was ever hired to do. So it was a huge life-changing moment for me. It was, she's talking about a show called Out of Practice. It was on CBS for not
One
even
year?
a year, right? Maybe less than a year. And we were all very proud of it. And it actually was me as sort of a smarmy guy. So it was kind of the last vestiges of that the parts that I was playing before.
Yeah.
But it was where I discovered really that I loved comedy more than anything. And it was absolutely one of the best years of my life. It was scary. It was really scary, but it was so fun. And I met the person who is really my mentor. His name's Christopher Lloyd. He's not the actor Christopher Lloyd, who was on Back to the Future. People get them confused. I actually sent a bottle of wine to Christopher Lloyd, my mentor, who wrote Out of Practice, and it went to Christopher Lloyd, the actor. And then Christopher Lloyd, the actor, went to Christopher Lloyd, my mentor's house, and handed him the bottle of wine. I'm not kidding. So they kind of know each other because they have the same name. But I met him. He is just a master storyteller. He ran the show Frasier for 11 years. He has the most Emmys of anybody in the history of Hollywood. He has, I think, 13 Emmys. Guy you don't really know about, but that is just a remarkable master of what he does. I met him on that show, and he hired me on my next show, and he's now the person who created Modern Family with Steve Levitan, who is also an amazing writer. So it was the beginning of really me getting to do what I'd always dreamed of. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Thanks a lot. Pleasure.